Welcome to the kitchen. My name is Tahric Finn. Today we're going to be talking about some greetings that you might use when you first meet somebody. And we've broken these into a few categories. We have greetings and introductions. We have small talk, which is very important. Things that you say to show interest in a person. Things that you do to continue the conversation if the conversation is started already and you have stalled and you want to think of something to keep the conversation going. And we have one thing just to end the conversation. So here we go. If you meet somebody, maybe you shake their hand or you say hello to them and you say to them, "Hi, my name is," what's yours? So, "Hi, my name is Tahric. What's yours?" Sometimes I might just say, "Hi, what's your name?" They say their name, and then I say, "My name is Tahric." Or I could just say, "Hi, my name is Tahric. What's yours?" Once they tell you their name, "Nice to meet you. Where are you from?" And where you're from can be what city are you from, what neighborhood are you from, what country are you from. Where I live here, I meet a lot of people from other countries. So a great way to start a conversation is just to ask where they come from. A common one to ask people is just, "How's it going?" How's it going is a little bit of a less formal way to say, "How are you doing?" How's it going? How's it going? How is your life going? And a good way to answer this is usually, "It's going pretty good." If you don't know somebody very well, this would not be the time to tell them about your problems. You wouldn't say here, "It's not going that well. I lost my job, blah, blah, blah." Usually, if you're just meeting somebody, the correct answer to say is, "It's going well. It's going fine. It's going great. It's going good." These are good answers to give. Let's say you're out at a coffee shop or you're out at an event. You could just say, "What brings you here today?" What brings you here today? It's a nicer way of saying, "Why are you here?" If I say, "Why are you here?" it is a little bit too direct. What brings you here today? It smooths out the question. It's asking the same question, but in a much more polite and friendly way. "What brings you here today?" "My friend John told me about this event and I thought I would come check it out." Those are some ways that you would expect to hear the answer to "What brings you here today?" If you are introduced through somebody, like let's say my friend Sam introduces me to Bill over here, I might say to Bill, "Bill, how do you know Sam?" And then this opens up another conversation because now Bill can tell me the story of how him and Sam met. And then maybe I could also tell the story of how I met Sam. Great conversation starter. And it's a way to find other topics that might give you an idea of what else to talk about after this. "Are you new to the area?" is another thing to ask. The problem with "are you" questions is sometimes the answer can just be yes or no. So if you ask a question that is not open-ended, so an open-ended question is, "How do you know Bill?" That's an open-ended question. Open-ended means that to answer the question, I need to give a sentence or a few sentences. But if I ask somebody, "Are you new to the area?" that is kind of a close-ended question. They could just say no, or they could just say yes. So be prepared for a close-ended question. This is not a bad question, but if you ask a question like this, be ready to ask or say something else after, especially if they give you a short answer. The next one is, "What do you do for work?" What do you do for work is a common question to ask people. Most people are comfortable answering what they do for work. Every once in a while, you might get a person who doesn't want to answer the question or might feel a little bit uncomfortable answering the question. If somebody acts uncomfortable when you ask a question, feel free to change the topic. But this is a common question: what do you do for work? Somebody might ask me, "What do I do for work?" And I would say, "What do I do for work? Oh, I'm an English teacher and I'm a manager at an English school, and I also teach jujitsu as well. Have you been here before? This is also a good question to ask at an event. Have you been here before? Again, this is a closed-ended question, so be prepared for a yes or no answer. If they say yes, you could say something like, is it usually like this? Are there usually this many people? Or do you come here often? What brings you here? What is it that you like about this place? You could say something like that. You could also share your feelings about the place. I think this place is okay. I can see why you come here often. This seems like a nice place. The next part is just questions that you would ask when you want to create small talk with somebody. Small talk is questions that you're using to get to know somebody, but it's not too personal. So small talk is things like the weather, etc., just to get a conversation going, but not really deep conversation about somebody's secrets or something about their private life. One of the best questions to ask for small talk when you're getting to know somebody is, what do you like to do in your free time? What do I like to do in my free time? I like to go to the gym, I like to hang out with friends, and I like to train martial arts. And then if you hear something in that free time question that's interesting to you, you could ask more about it. Like, oh, really? You like to do that? What is it about that? Or how often do you like to do that? So when you're making small talk, you have to really listen to what the person is saying. You can ask more about it. Really, you like to spend time with your family? Do you have children? Or what do you like to do with your family? Things like that. So showing interest and asking more based on the information that they already gave you. You could say something like, hey, have you seen any good movies lately? Maybe you could ask them something like, what kind of movies do you like? I like comedy movies. I like to laugh when watching movies. I like to laugh and relax, and comedy is one of my favorite genres of movie. Do you follow any sports? There's a small chance that this person might like the sport that you like. Let's say you're into football and this person says, yes, I follow football. And in your mind, you could just be, yes. And you could tell them about your team and ask them about their teams and start a conversation. Usually people will ask me, do you follow basketball? And I wish I could say yes, but I don't follow basketball. I could have a connection with somebody over basketball, but I don't get to because I don't really watch basketball. Next one is, what kind of music do you like? This is another chance to connect with somebody. If you like a certain type of music and they also like a certain type of music, then you could ask them about artists or tell them about things that you know about that genre of music. What kind of music do you like? I like rap music, or I like classical music, or I like pop music. Really? What do you think of the singer Tyla? Oh yeah, she's great. Something like this. If they follow a type of music that you like, it's a great connection and a great way to start a further or deeper conversation. Another one that is good for small talk, especially in Canada, people love to talk about the weather. So you might say something like, what do you think of this weather? Oh man, it's been raining. I hate the rain, something like that. So talking about the weather is another conversation, especially if you live in a place where the weather changes a lot. So like I said, I grew up in Canada. The temperature can range in the summer from say 32, 33, all the way in the winter to minus 30. And you get rain, you get hail. There's all kinds of things to talk about with the weather. In Taipei here, we have rain, we have heat, very hot days. People love to talk about how hot it is. It seems to be a great conversation among people to compare how much they are suffering in the heat. We have typhoons. That's another thing that we can talk about. Another category is just ways of showing interest in somebody. They might say, I like to do archery. Archery? Really? That's really interesting. Tell me more about that. They collect Pokemon cards. Really? You collect Pokemon cards? How long have you been doing that? How long have you been doing that? Is a show of interest. You collect Pokemon cards. Wow, I'd love to hear more about that. I'd like to hear more about that. Tell me more about that. You might ask why or how they got started. Archery? Really? What made you interested in archery? What made you interested in karate? What made you interested in painting? Really? You make movies? What made you interested in making movies? There are some things that you can say to prompt them to continue talking or to continue saying more about the topic. You could say, that sounds fun. How often do you do it? You like to play basketball? That sounds fun. How often do you do it? That sounds fun. How often do you play soccer? You can also ask what exactly is that they like about it. You play basketball. What do you like most about playing basketball? They might answer, they can meet friends, they get good exercise. What do you like most about this activity? The weekend is coming. Do you have any plans for the weekend? Do you have any plans for the weekend? Do you have any plans for the weekend? This is something you might say after Wednesday. You can ask them what their plans are for the weekend. On Monday, if the weekend just ended, it might be a little bit strange to ask what they plan to do on the weekend. What do you plan to do on the weekend? Speaking to this person on Saturday, you might say, what do you plan to do tomorrow? Do you have any plans tomorrow? What do you have planned for tomorrow? When the conversation is over, it's time to leave, you might say something like, it was really nice to meet you. We should stay in touch. If you plan to continue some sort of contact with them. If you don't want to continue contact with them, you can just say, it was really nice to meet you. Anytime you're about to go, anytime you're putting an end to the conversation, you're going to leave or you're going to go speak to somebody else, you can shake a person's hand and say, it was really nice to meet you. It was really nice to meet you. Goodbye. If you want to see this person again, or if there's a chance that you might want to talk to this person again, it was really nice to meet you. Let's stay in touch. And at that point, that is when you could get their information. It was really nice to meet you. Let's stay in touch. Here's my number. Or it was really nice to meet you. Let's stay in touch. Do you have Facebook? Things like this. It was really nice to meet you is a polite way to end the conversation, and it's more polite than just saying, okay, bye. You want to show that you enjoyed speaking to them. It was really nice to meet you, Sam. Let's stay in touch. Or, it was really nice to meet you, Sam. Maybe I'll see you again. These are just a few ways of making small talk with somebody, a few ways of creating conversation with a person that you don't know very well or a person that you just met. These are questions that are not too personal, so these are great questions, great conversation prompts, or great ways to continue a conversation with a person that you just met. You don't know them very well yet, but maybe in the future you will know them better, and then maybe in the future you can ask them deeper, more personal questions. But on the first meeting, you don't necessarily want to ask very personal questions of somebody. Let me know if you have any questions.